just so I don't forget.
Okay.
We'll cover, kind of a free flowing list of questions. It'll be hopefully more informal, casual chat. I'll ask you a couple things, but if we go off on a tangent, we go off on a tangent. I like it to feel like that. We'll probably be maybe 30 to 45 minutes if that's okay with
Sure.
your time
Yeah,
frame.
that totally works.
Awesome. Okay. And let me just make sure everything's good. And great. Okay. All right. So when we launch in, I'll have done an introduction of you already, and so then we'll just jump right in.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Chrissie. It's so nice to have you here on the 6%. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Nancy. I'm excited to chat with you today.
So I just want to explain how I was connected to you and how I learned about you. Alok Patel introduced me to you and your project, the Love Is Project, and rather organization. And I was immediately interested and enthralled, and especially because of the initiative that you had launched earlier this year with, unfortunately, the rash of Asian hate crimes. You took your business that was already a socially conscious business, one that gives back, and you took it to another level for an amazing cause, a good cause. And so that's how I learned about you. But as I learned more about you and your work, I was thinking, wow, I need to have this woman on my podcast. As a woman CEO, entrepreneur, and a fascinating path, I was really excited to talk to you. So thanks again for being on.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Thank you.
I would love to hear more about what you've been involved in and how you launched the Love Is Project. This has kind of been your world for the last now 5 years or so. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration and how this all began.
Sure. Yeah, it's been almost 5 years as a business, as an e-com brand. Prior to that, I was already around for a few years. I had left corporate fashion in New York City. I was doing like trend forecasting and concept design for brands like American Eagle and Abercrombie. And I was interested in more like doing more work in international development and how to like merge my background in design and leverage my network and experience to help create more jobs for women in developing countries. So yeah, so I moved to Kenya, and I was doing some consulting. I was also leading trips for designers to source out of Africa and be inspired, and as well as other countries like in Bali and Indonesia. And then decided to, I was created the original red love bracelet, and I had the idea when I was traveling around the world soon after in 2014 to Russia and all 50 other countries with one bracelet. And on the plane met these two girls, one from Uzbekistan and one from Kyrgyzstan. And we just started talking about their countries. I hadn't been there yet, and I was like, "Hey, I have this idea. I have this one bracelet I made with the Messiah. It says love on it. If you guys tell me what love means, you take a photo with you with it, and I'm going to do this for the rest of the trip." And sure enough, that's what happened. And then had this whole put together like a book of all the photos and definitions and pitched it to my old company. And soon after, they launched it as a social media campaign in their stores. And with the success of that campaign, I decided to create a brand out of it like a year or so later. So
And you have had some really prominent supporters of the Love Is Project. Did you ever have a moment where you saw your bracelet on someone and like kind of went eek on the inside?
yeah, so many times actually. It's always been like very organic, but like, from like the first time, like one of my friends told me, she's like, "Oh, Anne Hathaway is wearing your rainbow bracelet on the Glamour cover story." And it was her own. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing," because like paying someone like, Anne Hathaway would cost like, so much money. And it's the fact that she had her own and she was wearing it. That was awesome. Awesome. And then, we've had like Jeff Bridges wear it, Brooke Shields post about it, Bella Thorne. We've also had, which I love, like Ali McGraw. She's like was in Love Story back in like 1970. And I
Mhm.
used, as a designer, I always used to pull chairs of her, and she was a big icon. And sure enough, we ended up partnering with one of her organizations she works with, and she was wearing the bracelet. We've done some stuff with her. We sent her the photo book we did called The Greatest Love Story Ever Told, because if anyone knows about a good love story, she does. And she emailed me, with a thank you and like loving the bracelet, loving the book and all the messaging. And I was just like, so like I was like so like shocked that she knew who I was and like what I was doing. So that was awesome. So yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, you're taking something that is born out of love and out of passion and sharing it. And so it's natural for people to gravitate towards that. It just comes from a really pure place. You have a really unique position as a woman CEO and entrepreneur. How do you think women lead differently? And what are the challenges and what are the advantages of being a woman leader?
I think women are really good at multitasking. I think I can do a lot. Lived in New York for 18 years. I can, and I think as an entrepreneur, like you're having to juggle so many different things all at the same time, like, from vendors or artists and groups in all these different countries, like messaging them, creating product, doing trade shows, doing, learning email marketing, Facebook ads, content, creating content. Like, I mean, literally it's just like everything, you have to, as a entrepreneur. So I think, women are, can probably do a lot of things because we get it done. And I think, I think also like being resourceful, and innovative. And I think with my background in design and concept, I used to always have to find ideas and things out there and how to repurpose things and, be kind of scrappy, like trying to put some stuff together and like, I think on the fly. And I think it makes it fun and spontaneous and just trying to come up with those ideas. I think like, women are very resourceful like that. So I think that also helps me out too. And I think also women are also, emotionally, I think like intuitive. And I think for me, like I connect well with different people, strangers, all people from like different walks of life all over the place. And that's why I love traveling and doing this. So I think for me, I think asking people what love meant, versus maybe if it was a guy, that could be a little weird question. People like look at me and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you, So
yeah, I think sometimes you have the advantage of it perhaps being disarming, more disarming in a way,
yeah.
like you're saying. And what do you think on the flip side? What do you think were some of the challenges that were presented?
By starting my own business.
Just being a woman leader.
Oh, yeah, I think it's like being taken seriously. I've had other people think that like I wasn't going to succeed or like mock my, like thinking like, oh, there's no way she's going to be able to do this or like, and for me, and again, I've always proven a lot of people wrong over the time and especially like I always used to think like when I've heard these snippet of conversations, it's like, I'm like, wow, would this guy talk to a guy who has a company who's putting in orders, like, $100,000 orders with your company like this, or like behind someone's back? I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I think it's because I'm a woman and I don't think he thinks I can do it. You know what I mean? So I always find that always interesting. So.
What do you do with the emotions that come up when you're faced with that? And, how does one not internalize it and then let it really get them down?
I mean, I think in general, I prove them wrong. So that's one. Like, I think
you just show them.
I just sort of sit there. I'm like, hold my drink. Give me a second. I'll be right back. A couple $1 million later, we'll talk. Whatever. So I don't know. I mean, it's always a struggle. It's frustrating. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, I'm obviously capable. I've been working in the industry. I know, obviously, like when you're learning on a learning curve, like there's so much you have to learn when you're starting your own business. Of course, mistakes are made. You know how to pivot, you know how to change, you know how to, are you open to new suggestions? Yes. Like I feel like I'm not trying to micromanage. I'm not that person. So I think I am flexible. So I think that makes me, I have that, like, I don't know, ability to kind of not to roll with like what happens and stuff and not let things totally, crappy things happen all the time. It's just like how to deal with it, how to fix it. And I think women also are like problem solvers. It's like, I'm not going to sit here being like, oh my gosh, the victim, or this is that, okay, this happened, let's try to figure this out, and like and how this will never happen again. So
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned pivoting,
yeah.
and obviously that is part of being an entrepreneur and being in business is the ability to pivot. And that's where you see organizations and companies kind of flail or flounder or succeed when they're able to pivot with the changing times. What do you think was your scariest pivot?
Gosh, it's still always ongoing because I feel like everything keeps changing, especially in the digital marketing world. So, like, I mean,
Yeah.
we grew a lot in the beginning through Facebook ads, and as of since the Apple, it keeps, Facebook is a bit of a moving target, like how they keep changing algorithms and whatnot. Plus, also the Apple iOS 14 privacy issues that happened the past couple months has really made ecom, much harder, so like whereas say like D2C or direct to consumer business was much bigger before, our retailer wholesale business was smaller. Now, like we need to diversify, move, I mean, we have great retailers to focus more on that, other corporate partnerships, other channels, so we don't only depend on digital marketing. So I would say like right now you're always kind of pivoting on something, trying to figure out how to make something better and make it work. So, and I think it's like whenever you think you're like complacent and put all your eggs in one basket, which you should never do, I think like that's when you're really in some serious trouble. So, yeah.
Have you ever had something that in the moment felt or seemed like a failure that in retrospect opened doors for something else where maybe you were down for a little bit, but
Yeah, no,
realized it
many.
was an opportunity?
Yeah, sure. Many times, I think. And I think, prior to launching this as a brand, I think I went through moments where I think I wasn't confident in myself. And I allowed my actions to disempower myself,
Mm.
like in giving my power away, or giving my, always wanting to trying to help people, and again, that was one of my problems. It's like, I have to first help myself. Again, love is self-love. If you can't do that, then you can't help others, essentially. So it's been a lot of process of learning that, and trying to, protect myself and not be taken advantage of, and whatnot. So I think that's been a huge lesson. So
Definitely, definitely. I always like to ask my guests about going way back, years and years back into their childhood. And so my next question for you is tell me about 10-year-old Chrissie.
10-year-old Chrissy, gosh, if I could tell her that, at 43, and you're at 40, you'll be selling bracelets, don't worry, everything else, yeah, it'd be really interesting. But I think 10-year-old me was still essentially like, really like lots of energy, really creative, love, like, exploring things. And like, I think, essentially that's the core of who I am. I think I've, obviously learned a lot through working corporate business, my travels, and entrepreneurship along the way. And I think, having a playfulness, I think that's like, there's part of me that's always like inherently playful. And I think what's been hard, I think with entrepreneurship, it's like sometimes it's so serious because there's so much stuff I'm like buried under the weight of, helping, trying to create jobs, helping, or just the business aspect stuff of it, numbers and things that I'm not that into. And it's like I forget to be able to have that joy and that playfulness. And I'm trying to be able to focus more time on that just so I can have a better balance of like what, how I want to live my life. So
So, who do you think your biggest influences were growing up to get you to this point where, obviously you've got grit and you are resilient and you get back up when there are challenges placed? Who was there for you in your formative years and beyond as a young adult?
yeah, no, I mean, my parents are supportive of me. My father is really nurturing and amazing. My mom exposed me to a lot of travel abroad and creative stuff as a kid. I think, also, I think if you don't have suffering or things that you have to go through as a child, then you become more resilient. So I think, I was born with birth defects, with upper cleft palate, eyes, surgery stuff. So I had surgery as a child, speech therapy, all these things. So I think like for
Mhm.
me, knowing how it felt to go through that, as well as being bullied as a kid and all this stuff, it's like made me more empathetic towards others, as well as like having traveled abroad as a kid, seeing, people with, with like much less than, myself and my family, and also, knowing that, I just felt like I wanted to do more with my life than just, like obviously I like being creative and I wanted to focus on fashion for a while, but then I knew like something else was missing in my life later on, that
Mhm.
I wanted to do more of, and do something for that I could have, I could really have my voice shine, because I think in corporate after a while you kind of lose your voice, and it's kind of like, I think it's, for me as a creative, it was also pretty hard. But I think through the adversity I went through as a kid, I think it's made me stronger. And so it's like when things don't go my way, which a lot of times they don't, I just sort of sit there. I'm like, well, I'm just going to do it. I think I have a pretty like balls to the wall kind of mentality. I have a high, a pretty, I have a not, I have a pretty high risk tolerance. I think you have to have at some point to run your own business. So.
How did you find meaning in your work? And what's your advice to individuals who are in pursuit of that? Just approaching it not just as a job, but as a calling.
Having the calling for this type of work to do my own, social enterprise essentially, or
Yeah, I
more.
mean, how do you find meaning in what you do day to day?
I think, when I hear back from our artisan groups, or like, how things are going, or if like things that are going well, or like, the fact that, since, especially since every tourism has shut down, like so many countries through the pandemic, it's like that we can essentially be some sort of life as a lifeline, economic lifeline, to be able to create jobs still, and help these communities, or help fund food gardens, agricultural projects, so people are more self-sustaining. That's great. That makes me really, really happy. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Or I hear a great story from one of our customers who like loves our bracelets, buys it for their family for an event or gathering or something like that. It's really meaningful for them, and it had why it ties it to them. Because it's the bracelet has this like a life of its own already, right? Because essentially, like everyone
Mhm.
has their own relationship to what love is, and why they're wearing our bracelet. So I love hearing those stories. That's what gets me going. And I think, when people really like the design of our different products, that's exciting. Yeah, and I think on the other side of it, yeah, I think what's, is stressful sometimes is like, again, like just dealing with the, digital, Facebook ads, Google, all the stuff that, and or like working with, vendors or who don't know what they're doing, or you're losing money, all this kind of stuff that's like you get stressed out on, and you're like losing sight of like the big picture. And it's like, okay, like how I can like not be so stressed from that, and try to like focus more on this, because maybe there's something else I'm missing here that I need to focus on, and I'll just kind of grow more organically on its own. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Now, what have you read or seen or done recently that has just been really influential in shaping you as a person, as a woman leader, as a CEO?
Gosh, let's see. I mean, I think self-care is really important. I think as a owner, like, or anything in this world now, it's like it's so fast-paced, you can get really stressed out. So I think it's really taking care of yourself. I've been really, I've been doing more plant medicine in the past couple
Mhm.
years, like, so from, bufo or combo or boga or ayahuasca, and it's been really helpful to be able to clear out a lot of like not just personal trauma, generational trauma, because PTSD is passed on through generations,
Mhm.
and just getting me back at baseline to also kind of feel, just my nervous system and whatnot, and kind of like be ready to kind of do the next next round of work. So I would say plant medicine has been a huge help. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Do you think that women can have it all?
I mean, I suppose, I guess, what does have it all mean? I guess, I think, is it just happiness, peace of mind? Like, I mean, yeah, if you're constantly goal oriented, which I am, or driven, it's like, it's hard, because then it's like, okay, I've done this. Like, I've done this Shark Tank. And next, what's next? And it's like, oh my gosh, like, okay, less than 5 years, we've already done this much and this, but I'm like, still, sometimes I'm like, which I have to tell myself, like, wait, we've already done all amazing stuff. Like, but like my pressure on myself is like harder. I'm like, oh, I should be at this level, or I should why did we do this? I can't believe I made this mistake. Like, and so it's like being self-critical to the point
Hmm.
where it's like, you know what, like, hey, you know what? I've done the best I can. I'm enough. I don't need to like prove, I'm not here to prove anything. I'm just trying to like keep going. This is what I want to be doing. And it's just, I think it's just kind of keeping that mindset. So
Right. And I think, the whole phrase having it all is
mm,
like you said, it kind of depends on how you define that. And if you bring in that self-kindness, that
yeah,
self-love
yeah,
into what you define as having it all.
yeah.
And so what are some of we all kind of have limiting beliefs now and again, and we sort of have to talk ourselves out of it or kind of step back and see it for
Mhm.
what it is. What's one of the limiting beliefs you had for yourself, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, limiting beliefs, I think it's just like being like it's like the negative feedback loop in your head, and I
Hmm.
think for me it's just like being able to try to stop that. I think it's really, and it's hard sometimes, like, so I think that's limiting, because then it's like you're essentially sending negative thoughts to your own self, and it's just like I need to stop doing that because I need to be. And I think it's hard because sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want to be so positive that like I sound like a, have this ego or like a narcissist or whatever, just try to be like that. You're like, okay, I'm positive, I need to think positive, so this will actually, happen. And but then like you don't want to be overexcited because however it doesn't happen, and disappointed. So it's trying to figure out like, I'm like, is this, does this work? Yeah. So I think I just try to, be realistic, I'm just trying to not be I want to, like, okay, yes, I want to be able to like improve the lives of not just thousands, tens of thousands, or even more women around the world. I could see this scaled up and in so many different ways. But I also want to be also like, you know what, like I need to just also make sure I rather be profitable, successful, and grow slowly, or like stay at the same pace I am now without having so much stress either. Because I also, my
Hmm.
health is, I'm trying to be careful that, I don't want to overstress myself, which I've been stressed before. And it's just like the worst feeling ever because like it's, yeah. So,
And so, just to pivot a little bit
yeah.
here, sometimes in orthopedic surgery,
Mhm.
and the podcast, as you know, is called the 6% because there aren't
Mhm.
that many women. There are only
Mhm.
6% of us.
Yeah.
We see women in these roles in male dominated fields and or in leadership roles, such as yours, having to shed some of their more feminine qualities to feel like they fit in or to feel like they can demonstrate how good or smart they are. And have you ever felt that? Have you ever felt that pressure to do that? And I know that coming from a design world and coming from the fashion world, there are some differences, but tell me about your experience with that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think definitely like just having the confidence and knowledge, like you have to present yourself in a certain way. I lived in New York a long time too, and New York's a very has masculine, a lot of masculine energy anyway. And
Hmm.
so I think, you generally have that vibe going on anyway. But I think, what I try to do now, like, I don't know. I still trying to figure that out. I think, unfortunately, yeah, like I think people take people more seriously when it's like that. Like I don't know if this is actually a way to be more softer. I mean, like then yeah. So I'm not sure what the answer. I think you do have to. So
Yeah, yeah, to some extent. And I think, but the other side of that, I think, is also just kind of embracing parts of yourself that maybe go against the grain a little bit, and simultaneously being unapologetic for that, right?
yeah, it's just like owning it. Like I'd rather be more straightforward than having to feel like, I have to like kowtow to, or something like someone else's, whims and stuff. So, I mean, I think I'm
Absolutely.
pretty, I think I'm pretty, like I said, flexible, and I'm like willing to compromise, like work with people. And I'm not like, so like one, no, one track kind of thing. But
Hmm.
I think also like, if someone's totally not aligned with my vision or what I'm trying to do, then it's just not the right fit, or like, and I don't want to also be, I also know like I can smell bullshit too. So I don't want to sit there dealing with like people who are trying to pull something over me, so I also rather get out and not,
Yeah.
deal with people like that. So
Cut your losses. Don't waste
yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly. And is that more masculine? I don't know, maybe, or maybe it's I don't know. But, well, I guess when you're talking about feminine too, like I'm like, are you saying is it more like submissive? Is it more, are you trying to be more soft? I don't know. So that's what sometimes I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of women trailblazers and are really kind of defining what feminine means and trying to claim a lot of the really positive associations with that as opposed to the traditionally, negative, like,
Mhm.
like the terms like, oh, you throw like a girl, or, you run like a girl, or whatever that is. And those are the
Or
negative
you're not like
connotations.
or you're not like receiving enough, or you're not
Yeah.
receiving, like I'm like, oh, if you're gonna give me crap, of course I'm not gonna receive that. I'm gonna throw it right back to you. So
I refuse to receive that. I love
yeah, totally.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. So you obviously, you juggle so many different things at once and seem to thrive off of just kind of remaining goal oriented and always shooting for the next thing. And obviously you have to be efficient, and you definitely must have some life hacks. So I would love to know if you have some life hacks that you can share that just sort of boosts your productivity or just makes your life easier.
I'm trying to do even more of it, but I've been automating a lot more things, like in the business, from and also I have an outsourced team, like down in LA, that does a lot of my backroom operations. It's great trying to push some other tasks off to that, and like our interns, and just so I have more space so I can like be back to like what I love and what I'm better at, like being creative, creating, like like with my time versus being like stuck in the weeds with other projects. So I'm just trying to automate more. I'm going to keep on trying to do more of that this year. So like yeah, so I can free up my time more, and so I'm not like, you know, doing stuff
I
I don't.
I think that is even applicable to the individual who's not necessarily an entrepreneur or in business, regardless of their career. I mean, I think that even in our personal lives, when you figure out things that you can automate and spend less time doing, I mean, it makes the joy, it gives you so much more time to do the joyful things and the things that
Yes,
really matter.
yes, yeah.
Absolutely. So, if you had one big piece of advice for a woman who looked up to you, wanted to follow in your footsteps, what would that be?
I would say, go for it. I mean, like, I think you have to have certain, like, kind of, just to be able to like jump off that cliff, to be like, okay, whether you work corporate for 5, 10 years, 20 years, it's like at some point, it's like if you want to do it, you need to do it. So it's like having that no fear sense that like, okay, like, and you'll figure stuff out. Like nothing's always set in stone. So you're constantly reiterating. So I think it's just being comfortable with change always. Um, and yeah, because I think it's just like if you don't try, then you'll never know. Yeah, I knew if I never did my own thing, or I didn't love, I would be so like I was like stagnant and stuck and like frustrated. And it's like, even though I'm stressed for other reasons now, at least I have my, you know, passion, like, so, or, what I'm trying to do. So I think, and, if there's ways, like, again, I was working corporate first, I was dabbling in some of this stuff before to kind of see before taking that leap and having other passive income or other stuff coming in. So you're not completely, no lifeline to be able to start your own thing. So, and also like not throw, if you're going to change careers, or, I wouldn't say just throw everything out. You've learned, and the people, that's like so much of what I've done and how I've been able to grow is leveraging off my network, that my friend groups I've known in the industry for years, as well as, my skill set and what I used to do, and reapplying it and parlaying it into what I'm doing now.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much for being on the 6% podcast. This has been so educational and enlightening for me too. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Do that. Let me recording here. So, Chrissy, tell me, what is the Love Is Project?
Yes, so Love is Project, we create jobs for over 2,000 female artisans in 10 countries. And we create different love bracelets inspired by the culture and craftsmanship of each place. And our supporters share what love means and inspiring love stories around the world. And so the idea is creating jobs so they can help fund their families and communities while spreading the message of love. And we have a deck of cards, like the actionable item, like prompts and stuff for people to share with friends and family. Our photo book with all the collaborating photographers and my trip and photos from around the world and the definitions. And then we have all the different bracelets. So that's that's the Love is Project.
Awesome. I love it. I think love is going to be what's going to save us all, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want to learn more, you check out our website. It's loveisproject.com.
Awesome. And where else can our listeners find you online?
We on Facebook on loveisproject.co, and then Instagram, which is Love is Project as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask that once again so that you can just say, this is our website and
Okay,
here's
sure.
where we are online,
Sure.
because I'll
Yeah.
put that at the end.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chrissie, where can our listeners find out more about you and the Love Is Project online?
You can check out our website, which is loveisproject.com, and also on Facebook, which is also loveisproject.co, and our Instagram, which is Love is Project.
Awesome. We will keep an eye out for the exciting things that you're doing there.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay.